Hey guys, welcome back to Arrowhead Tactical Apparel. Today we are starting a new series of sorts, something I've been working on for a little while. Obviously, if you're in the gun community, you have probably heard of things that are called AR builds, where someone takes the concept of an AR-15 rifle and builds it out in the way that they want to for what's going to serve their purposes. I have done just that. For the first time in my life, aside from just doing little bits and pieces, I've actually sat down and really consciously put together an AR-15 rifle. And I went at it from the philosophy of I'm going to spare no expense, but I'm also not going to spend money for the sake of spending money. It's going to be a very nice rifle, but I'm not going to get into diminishing returns. For the sake of this, I'm calling it the cost-conscious Gucci gun, or the C.C.G.G. Say that 5 times fast. Without further ado, let's grab the rifle. Let me introduce some of the pieces. I'm going to be making a lot of content with this particular gun, doing comparisons with it, doing long-term tests with it, and ultimately finding out if the rifle that I built is any good. So here we go. This is my cost-conscious Gucci gun. Now, before we get into anything, let me disclaim, I'm not former military. I have never fought with a weapon to save my life. I've never been trained in that capacity. I'm a good shooter that does these things recreationally, and I wanted to build a good do-everything rifle. I did a lot of research putting this guy together, and we're going to take it tip to butt to talk about what is actually going on here with this rifle. Now, before we go any further, I will say that this is a 14.5-inch upper that has been pinned and welded. So this is not an NFA item aside from the can. So let's start there. Up top, we have a Surefire RC2 suppressor that I use across a lot of my different guns. I want to eventually get a dedicated can for this, probably in FDE to match the rest of the schema, and probably one of Surefire's shorter cans. But underneath this locking collar, I have one of their birdcage flash hiders that is also intended to be a suppressor mount. And in my estimation, it works really well. I like the Surefire ecosystem, and I found that it's done well by me. Continuing that theme, we have a Surefire. This is the Scout Light, this is the Turbo, and yes, the tan one is substantially more expensive, but again, keeping with the motif. Now, we also have an Axon switch that I have hooked up here to a SOMOGEAR PEC 15. No, this is not a real PEC 15. I don't even own night vision yet. I honestly have it because I like the laser system, and I wanted to have that capability for when I branch into it eventually. This will get its own review in the longer term, but so far my experience with these knockoffs has been, it's actually pretty damn good. As I mentioned, the Axon switch by Unity, I really like this a lot. I will do some clips with this later showing how this actually works, but you have the button that can activate both the light and the laser at the same time, and the flat pad that activates just the laser and not your white light. Then I also have added these rubberized grips. I have a Strike Industries angled handguard that works perfectly right there. Forgot to mention I do have the Magpul backup iron sights, just the basic M-Bus plastic. Let's talk about the rifle itself. So this upper is the Daniel Defense M4A1R3, which is M-LOK in their own very unique shade of that sort of FDE that I really like. Full disclaimer, I did receive this upper from Daniel Defense to be able to test out and review. Working our way farther back, the lower on this is also a Daniel Defense lower that I have personally owned for quite some time. The trigger in this is a Geissele SSA-E, the enhanced model. So this is an incredibly light, very crisp, just a very good semi-automatic trigger that I'm a huge fan of. But I've had this lower for a long while. I think I purchased this lower back in 2016, maybe, and it's got a lot of rounds through it. Some Magpul furniture for the handguard. This is a Bravo Systems B5 stock. The charging handle is from Geissele. It is the super charging handle from them that's fully ambidextrous. And then let's talk about optics. So for optics, I went with what I felt was a tried and true option. Trijicon ACOG with a piggybacked RMR. And this one actually also has some iron sights built into it. Now, I did receive the optic from Optics Planet. Big fan of the guys over there and what they do. So if you're looking for a really high quality optic, I'd recommend checking out Optics Planet as well. So what was the goal here? Well, the goal of this rifle was to have a good do-everything rifle that is great at target shooting, that would be great at reaching out, that is great at shooting closer, and that would also be very effective if I ever had to defend my life with a weapon like this. All in all, if you were to build this gun out, I sort of pieced it up. And I believe you could put this gun together for somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 to $5,000, depending on taxes and where you actually buy things from. Definitely not cheap, but it comes with a ridiculous amount of capability. Let's break down some of the ways that this rifle is very capable and why I built it in the way that I did. So one topic I want to cover in a little bit more depth has to do with aiming redundancy on this rifle, because if you're looking at it, you'll probably notice there are a lot of different ways to aim it. Let's talk about what those are and why I've added them in the way that I have. So 3 of the ways you can aim this rifle come from this right here. So you have the Trijicon ACOG, which is for magnified engagement. You have the RMR, which is obviously closer range red dot engagement. And then this also has backup irons on it. I'm struggling to think of a situation where I would choose to use that over the red dot, but it's nice to have. We then also have the true backup iron sights, which are plastic, which is important because they weigh nothing and they aren't using rail space that I would need, which is why I kept them on there. But in a situation like that, that's if you are ripping the ACOG off, maybe it's taken around or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I like having that on there. And then the 5th passive way of aiming this gun is the PEC-15. And if I step over here and you look at that steel target on the right, you can hopefully see that green dot. I've got this zeroed at, I believe, 50 yards, and that gives you another way that you'd be able to aim the gun. Obviously, that's a visible laser, and you also can set it to an IR laser if you're operating under night vision, which is honestly something that I hope this gun will help me get into. So there's a lot of redundancy there, but they do serve different pieces. And as I train with this gun, I'm going to be sure to train with all of those options to make sure that I'm competent and capable with all of those options. Okay, so with that, we've definitely spent more than enough time just talking about that rifle. Let's send some rounds, and you can just see it in action a little. All right, so something I will talk about, the Surefire suppressor is not a flow through or anything like that. It does a pretty good job of doing sound suppression, but ultimately it's not something that I would shoot for extended periods of time without ears in. But it does make the gun very pleasant and easy to shoot. The super lightweight trigger on here, which has just a little bit of take up, makes this gun just an absolute dream to shoot. The longest steel I'm engaging out there, it's about 100 yards away, give or take. And some of the closer stuff is more like 15, 20, which I've got eyes on, I'm all right. Let's finish this magazine. And just like that, she locks back. So, very reliable gun, very easy to shoot. I'm pretty sure I just hit 30 shots in a row without a miss, which at these distances is not anything to write home about, but it just goes to show, you know, I was bouncing back and forth between the ACOG, the RMR, and the, maybe you can see that, and the visible laser on this PEC-15, being able to transition to aiming from the side, aiming from the red dot, or going down into your magnified optic. So that's just a teaser of what's to come with this rifle. I'm going to feature this in a lot of different comparison tests and general, I'm not going to call them torture tests, but you know, as I learn my way around this rifle, becoming more and more proficient with it. But I'm extremely excited about this build. Curious to know your recommendations. You know, what would you change? What would you have done differently? What do you like? What do you don't like? We look forward to hearing from you. And as always, you are watching the channel for the safest and best way to carry concealed. So if you are looking for athletic apparel for concealed carry, you are in the right place. Check us out at arrowheadtacticalapparel.com. If you want to see more of this gun, definitely like, subscribe, and stick around for more. Thanks, guys.